The general manager of the Arizona Cardinals live in studio for day 5 of Newsmakers Week. Steve Keim joins us as he has done every year of Newsmakers Week since he's taken over as the general manager. Steve, good morning. I'm a little shocked that you walked in and one of the first things you noticed is Wolf's attempt, not successful, but attempt at losing weight.
Oh, yeah.
No, he looks great. I mean, Romanian deadlifts or what? I mean, it has to be something.
You know, it was funny because just yesterday I got on the bench and ripped out 3 reps at 225 with some chalky hands, just so you know that, all right? Slapped it up a little bit. Yeah, no.
Would you draft somebody that could get it up only 3 times?
Steve, I've lost 22 pounds, right? I mean, it's not
I can
bad,
tell you've been
right?
doing a lot of core work. I've been doing,
all right.
A friend of mine taught me about intermittent fasting. So what I do is I take off eating for a couple hours, and then I go back and I
Is that
put
right?
the feed bag on. Yeah,
Yeah, you know what? You've kept it off too, haven't you?
So stress is an amazing thing.
Yeah, indeed.
So what are you stressed about, General Manager Steve Keim?
Larry Fitzgerald coming back.
Okay.
No, it's great news yesterday. Coach was got the call from Larry, and then of course he called Michael and then myself and let us know that Larry was coming back for sure, and obviously gave our fans a lot to celebrate, and couldn't be any happier. Obviously not a classier guy, classier player, better face of the organization than Larry Fitzgerald.
Is that going to impact your search for a quarterback in any way, shape, or form? I mean, do you think that might help you actually secure a quarterback if, in fact, you're going to take a free agent route, by way of example?
I mean, I don't think it per se affected the search part of it. Now it will impact the recruitment part of it if in fact it's through free agency. I mean, there's no doubt that Larry Fitzgerald's name and his reputation carries a lot of weight. So we will certainly, if we go down that path, use Larry and David Johnson and all the other current stars that are on our roster to try to make sure that any potential franchise quarterback understands that this is a special place.
When you go into this quarterback offseason, do you go into it guns a-blazing for March and free agency, and then that affects the draft? Are you more aggressive trading in the draft if you don't get the free agent quarterback, or are you more kind of just let the chips? I mean, what is the plan that you are willing to tell us?
Well, I mean, it's easy because it's chronological. I mean, it's the free agency comes first. So to me, the way you have to address it is you have to have plan A, B, C, and D. And whether that's, A, addressing it with a free agent quarterback, B, trade option, C, draft. I mean, or again, all of the above. I mean, we will leave no stone unturned, as I've talked about before. But at the end of the day, you can't get called on A because, again, there are different factors that go into decisions by a free agent quarterback in a trade process that you can't put your finger on. So at the end of the day, we just have to be prepared to move on to number 2 or number 3, and we can't get caught flat-footed if the first opportunity doesn't pan out.
Steve, 5 years ago, you did this, right? You did this. You came in as a brand new general manager, right? You and Michael had just hired Bruce Arians, of course, and you went out and you grabbed Carson Palmer. You've done this before. Does it feel different to you this time, right? Obviously, with the experience that you have now, do you think you have a more clear path this time than you did then?
I would say through experience and through self-evaluation, you always feel a little easier, or just through the experience that you feel more comfortable. But at the same time, I think back to that time, and it was, whirlwind for me. I mean, again, I sat down at my desk the first day and said, what do I do now? And it's, hire a head coach, find a quarterback, make some other tough decisions. And looking back on it now, I mean, Bruce Arians wasn't a sexy hire. Carson Palmer wasn't a popular trade. And we had some success with it. I also had to make one of the hardest decisions I've ever made by releasing a player that is near and dear to my heart, Adrian Wilson.
Yep.
A guy who's in the Ring of Honor, a guy who I've been close to since he's 17 years old, and someone who is very close to me in today's day and age and works for me in the scouting department. So it was an emotional time for me. It was tough. But at the end of the day, looking back on it, I think we did some good things. But by no means, when I look back on it now, am I satisfied or content, because we haven't won a world championship, and that's what this is all about.
Steve Keim, General Manager, Arizona Cardinals, live in studio. The reports have it, I don't want to act like I've seen it, the Garoppolo contract might have some $32 million cap hits at times during his contract. Does that number scare you? Are you worried about going to get a quarterback that could have 5 years, another $137 million? I mean, what do you have a ceiling in free agency where you're not touching a guy that's going to be up where near that money, or you say no, I don't care where the money is if that's the guy I want him?
No, and that's the process that we go through every day, particularly Mike Disner and myself, as we look at our model and looking not only again at this year from a cash and a cap standpoint, but 3 and 4 years down the road, how does that affect us? Where does the cap potentially go in 3 or 4 years? What other contracts are going to be up, with current players on our team, that we want to make sure that we keep the core in place? So there's so many moving parts that you just can't put your finger on and say, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to spend X amount of dollars. Mike does an unbelievable job managing our cap. He and I talk daily at length about fitting different players in. How would they fit? We've created a model that I won't go into detail on how we can look at that. I'm more of a visual learner, so I want to see if we do X, Y, and Z, where does that leave us? What does it give us room for? So it's a great tool for us to look at the roster moving forward, not only in 2018, but 19, 20, and 21 moving forward.
Steve, have you ever seen a quarterback class like what you're seeing right now? I mean, honestly, with whether you're talking about the draft, you're talking about via trade, you're talking about some free agents as well. I don't know if the NFL has ever seen a group like this. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a pure number standpoint, that's accurate. There are some free agents, in my opinion, out there that are certainly worthy. When you get to the draft process, it's an inexact science. I mean, there's nobody that can tell you until they step on the field that they're going to have success in the National Football League. It's purely projection. And that's the hardest part about the draft process is, again, it's an inexact process. And at the end of the day, there are times when guys are going in the top 10 that are never going to have any success. So whether you are taking one in the top 10 or trading up to the top 10, wherever it may be, you better be sure that you're going to be right on that pick.
How much you just mentioned, and if you just tuned in, Steve Keim, General Manager of the Cardinals, joining Doug and Wolf, the chronological order that free agency's first, then the draft. How do you have free agent quarterbacks labeled? If you go after quarterback A, is it no longer best player available in the draft? Because if the best player is a quarterback, you say, no, I'm going to draft him anyway? Or do you say, no, I've got my quarterback of the future? Do you have guys in the media term, bridge quarterback? Do you have some labeled bridge? And that means, okay, I am still drafting a high-ranked quarterback. How does the free agent quarterback affect then what you're going to do in the draft?
Well, number one, I mean, the guy that you sign in free agency or trade for, how are you identifying that player? Number one, what's his age? Number two, what's his contract status? Once you identify what those things are, if he's a 27-year-old quarterback and you give him a 5-year deal, then obviously the draft becomes a different situation. If you give a guy a 1-year contract and it's a prove-it deal, now all of a sudden the draft also becomes another situation. So again, a lot of moving parts, and it depends on how you identify those players in free agency and the type of deal that you put in place.
So obviously there's a lot of moving parts on this. There's no doubt about that. A lot of variables are involved in this, but I would imagine, knowing you've got a plan. You've got a hardcore path that you would like to take at this point. Am I right about that? Or is it still all of the variables that are out there that you really don't know yet?
No, I mean, 100% I have a plan. It's just we have a plan. But at the end of the day, I mean, again, a lot of different things can happen.
Right.
And those are things that I can't forecast. So until March 14th, there's not a lot that I can predict.
Do you allow yourself to think of one name? Do you allow yourself to do that? Has it come to a point where you do, this is the way that I'd love for this to work. This is the way that I'd love for this to fall.
I mean, I have conviction on A, B, C, and D. It's just, again, I mean, without understanding which way it's going to go, it's too hard to answer, Wolf. And it's one of those situations that I can't get too emotionally vested into one guy, and then all of a sudden, Plan B looks a lot worse, or Plan C, and then it really disrupts the whole process.
So, full disclosure, the way Newsmakers Week works, we usually learn so much in what we call not so beautiful parts of the program. And as we sit here in the Auction Community Studios this morning, instead of being able to pepper Steve Keim and get all kinds of juicy details, the high topic of conversation between Steve Keim and Ron Wolfley was basically who used to be fatter and where they stand right now in their life.
Yeah, right, exactly. You know what? I've only lost 22 pounds, but this is a lifestyle change.
Oh, no.
2,000 calories a day. That's all it is, ladies and gentlemen. Count the calories.
Well, Steve Keim won because he says he's about 50 pounds under.
Well, yeah, right.
The key,
kept it off for 5 years,
to it all, though, is just the philosophical approach is I was a guard and I look like a guard. Wolf was a fullback and looks like a guard.
Boy, what a kick in the cradle that
was
right
it was
there.
Deserved. We're talking to Steve Keim, general manager, Arizona Cardinals. And full disclosure, we've tried. We haven't really gotten him to say the name Kirk Cousins or say I'm all in on Bridgewater or anything like that.
Nick Foles.
But we have gotten the fact that you have said you got a plan A. And you got a plan B, you got a plan C, you got a plan D, and maybe even more than that. And they all move around based on what's about to happen, who signs where, what contract is what. So in the philosophical world of plan B is set. I don't know if it's a trade and the other GM says, let's do it. It's a free agent signing and the other agent says, we're in. Do you then say, sit tight and wait to see if plan A works? Or do you say, hey, now that I got my plan B and I've got all the ducks in a row, I just got to do plan B and I can't wait for plan A. Are you a guy that wants to wait and be patient? Or do you say, once I've got one of them, we've got to go?
Well, I mean, I think a bird in the hand is certainly one that you would be a little more excited about. But at the same time, what's the different playing ability between A and B? Number one, usually if A is your guy, you try to accelerate the process and that decision for player A.
Okay.
And then once there's a decision that either can't be made or didn't go your way, the other fact of the matter is if it is in fact a trade, that generally comes with a renegotiation. Anytime you're trading and you're giving up compensation for a player, particularly one that has 1 year left on his contract, you're generally going to try to redo his deal, which can also come with some complications. So there's a lot of moving parts, as we talked about earlier. Probably too many to go into detail in this program.
But feel free if you want.
But again, we have a plan in place, and I feel really comfortable with it.
So what does it mean to you to sign a 5-year extension with the Arizona Cardinals? What is this, 19 years?
Yeah, I just finished 19. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, aside from the stability for my children, which is the obvious probably for all of us that we work for, I try to get emotional here. Aside from Brian Gutekunst, maybe who just became the GM in Green Bay.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's another GM in the NFL that started with the organization that he's with, especially at the ground level. So this job isn't a paycheck for me. It's a passion. And, until, we're able to hoist that Lombardi trophy and to see a look on Michael's face and to see the community get excited about this team, the way they've continued to support us, my job's not done here. I'm not content, as I said earlier, nor am I satisfied. So, and that's the proudest thing about being a part of this organization for so long, is to see in 1998 when I started where we've come, and more than anything in my mind, where we can go. This fan base has become, to me, one of the best in the National Football League, and it gives me probably the most sense of pride that I have about this job is the community and the fan base that we have.
One of the compliments that you would know full well is the fact that you went 8-8 last year, and that's bad. When you started, you go 8-8. That's a dream come true. Everybody's excited. But since it's not what your goal is, what's gone wrong the last couple of years that you feel like you now know you got a finger on it and you can fix it?
It could be, everybody can make an excuse about injuries. Everybody incurs injuries. Unfortunately, we incurred injuries at positions that are hard to replace. At the same time, there's always an attention to detail that could have been tightened up and potentially areas that I could have done a better job. So I got to get back to basics. I got to continue to grow and evolve in my position. I'm extremely thankful, as I said earlier, that Michael has entrusted in me to be in this position, to reward me with this type of contract. And at the end of the day, again, the expectations in this community and this fan base has changed, which I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, put it this way, whatever we do or if we ever fail, nobody's harder on me than me. I mean, so at the end of the day, I'll continue to have the internal drive to make everybody around here proud, and hopefully we can continue to grow and get better as an organization because I feel like big things are in store ahead of us.
So when you evaluate yourself, where is your weakness? What does Steve Keim have to get better at?
Again, I think, in the evaluation process, continuing to grow, not only with the evaluations, because again, we get so consumed with the physical traits, the size, the length, the athleticism, continuing to do a better job of not ignoring the red flags, making sure that maybe you need to take a player that is less talented that loves a little more, that maybe has the intangibles, the ability to process and learn information quicker. Because again, I say it all the time, we miss more on the person than we miss on the player. And the two hardest things to evaluate are the heart and the mind. And those are areas that I need to continue to challenge myself to get better.
I know that you had a great relationship with Bruce Arians, very, very close relationship, obviously, with Bruce Arians, and that BA taught you a lot. If you had to pick one thing, Steve, that Bruce Arians, the one thing you're going to carry from BA and the relationship that you've had with him, what would that be?
You know what? A lot. I mean, again, I can't even start. I mean, he was a great partner for 5 years, special human being. Hard to believe that two guys that grew up 12 miles apart ran an NFL football team together. I mean, that's pretty special. And will always remain a special friend and a special person to me moving forward. I would say that whole no risk it, no biscuit thing. Again, in this position, you can, in a lot of ways, overanalyze or overthink things. And instead of that, you know what? Go with your gut instinct, make a decision, and don't look back.
Steve Keim, General Manager, Arizona Cardinals, joining Doug and Wolf. What impressed you at the Senior Bowl?
Unfortunately, I didn't get to go because we were finalizing the draft process.
I should say,
the hiring process with Steve Wilkes, and then putting together his coaching staff. So for the first time in 19 years, I did not attend the combine, and Coach and I both agreed that there was no chance that he and I would be able to walk 10 feet if we went to Mobile without a staff in place. So it's all taped nowadays. It's on film. There are interviews that are filmed. Our scouts were extremely impressed with the talent that has been there. Phil Savage, a guy I know well, a former general manager who runs the Senior Bowl, has done a fantastic job of making the game better in terms of quality of what NFL teams are looking for. So, again, just the information that we've gathered down there, again, not just what the guys do on the field, because last year Hassan Reddick was a perfect example of seeing a guy do some different things athletically that excited us, but the access that we have to the players at night to interview them and get to know the person is so crucial.
How's the relationship with Steve Wilkes? I know it's early. I know you guys, 3.5, 4 weeks, whatever it may be right now, but how's that going?
So far, it's fantastic. I mean, again, we felt like we clicked from the beginning. Michael, myself, and him knew that we could have open lines of communication. It would be extremely easy. And more than anything, had the same core values and believed in building the roster and coaching our football team in the same way that the culture had already been established here with Bruce and his staff. So he's been fantastic. His coaching staff has really impressed me. A lot of different guys that I didn't know have been in meetings with me this week, and have a tremendous amount of experience in the league. Several former Cardinals, Ray Brown, David Merritt, who was my actually my college teammate at NC State. So it's been fun to put together this staff with Coach and to get to know these guys individually.
When's the last time you talked to David Johnson's agent about a contract extension?
You'd love to know, wouldn't you?
Well, after Steve Wilks' answer yesterday, come on. You got to trump Steve Wilks, don't you?
What was that?
We have Larry's news this week. We have a lot of good things going on. So we just got to keep some of those teasers out there.
Yes. I don't even know where to go after that one right there, Steve.
So was it yesterday or Wednesday? Come on. Which one then? Which one? It's got to be one of those two, or you would have said that.
David's agent represents several guys on our team, so
I see.
We're in constant communication.
What is next? What's the big focus for you right now on your agenda going forward?
Well, because it comes first is the combine. I mean, the combine is a huge part of building this roster, and we'll end up taking 56 members of our staff, from medical to trainers to coaches, scouts.
Stunning.
It's amazing how many people will attend the combine in Indianapolis. The medical information is imperative to the process, but more than anything, the interviews at night. Again, getting to know the person, having the ability to talk football, to talk the background information, any character flaws, any issues that we may have come across at the school. So, again, it's part of putting the puzzle together. Don't want to get too high or too low on a player's 40 time or what he jumps, because at the end of the day, what they do on tape is really what matters. We all know that. And what kind of person are they? How much they love it.
The exclusive conversation you only get during Newsmakers Week because of our appreciation for the Arizona Cardinals participating is every year during this time. Steve Keim, general manager of the Cardinals. What do you want Cardinals fans to know about the 2018 Arizona Cardinals?
You talked about it earlier. This year we did not meet expectations. 11 starters on IR. At the end of the year, we beat Jacksonville, Tennessee, and then played on the road and beat Seattle with our third-string quarterback, our fourth-string running back, and a number of backup players on our roster. The one thing that I feel like energized this football team was our fan base. And I don't think they'll ever understand the power of their enthusiasm and the support that they give us. So, number one, I want to say thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be your general manager, and I can't wait to see what's in store moving forward.
98.7 FM, Arizona's sports station.